Hey, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and children of all ages. Today, we have a very special guest, a friend of mine. This is a lady who is the real deal. She has 44 years of experience in law enforcement, and a great deal of that in crime scene investigation and working cold cases. So, as we get into the program, I'm going to give you a glimpse at her resume, as she is well respected worldwide as an expert in her field. Stay tuned.
When it comes to the legend of Buford Pusser, particularly the controversial death of his wife Pauline, everyone has an opinion. But what truly matters is the evidence, because like the truth, it carries no agenda. Uncovering and interpreting that evidence is the work of a crime scene investigator, and few are more respected in that field than Cheryl McCollum. Known worldwide for her expertise, McCollum has worked hundreds of crime scenes and has frequently testified in court as a recognized expert in forensic investigation. McCollum graduated high school from Woodward Academy, a preparatory school in Atlanta. She received a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Georgia State University and a master's in criminal justice from Kaplan University. McCollum's law enforcement career began in 1982 at the Rape Crisis Center at Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. From there, she was director of the Metro Atlanta Cold Case Crime Analysis Squad. During the 1996 Olympic Games, she was the coordinator for the crisis response team that planned and trained for 4 years and responded to the Centennial Olympic Park bombing, providing victim services. She also served as the Georgia State Director of Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. McCollum in 2004 founded Cold Case Investigative Research Institute, a collaboration between Auburn University Montgomery, Faulkner University, and Bauder College. CCIRI unites researchers, practitioners, students, and the criminal justice community to work collectively to advance research, training, and techniques in solving cold cases. CCIRI has since worked with 27 colleges and universities, more than 8,000 students, and 600 experts who have volunteered their time and talents to solve cold cases. A nationwide volunteer network made up of 27 colleges and universities, 600 forensic professionals, and 5,000 students that assist victims' families and law enforcement by working on unsolved homicides, missing persons, and kidnapping cases. Beginning in 2008, CNN followed 4 Bauder College students as they built case files in the Chandra Levy and Natalie Holloway cold case investigations, led by McCollum and her Cold Case Investigative Research Institute. In 2009, McCollum's students, after pursuing the Levy investigation for more than a year, narrowed the suspect list to 1. McCollum held workshops at CrimeCon 2017, a conference advertised as a true crime theme park for amateur sleuths. McCollum's workshops included wine and crime sessions, which she described for CrimeCon's blog. "I'm giving you exactly what we know about a case that we're working on. I'm holding nothing back. You'll get the autopsy reports, the crime scene photographs, witness statements. Anything that we have, you will have. Then you go to work." McCollum in August 2019 joined CBS 46 as a crime scene investigator on Emmy Award-winning CSI Atlanta, working exclusively with a Channel 46 team to investigate unsolved Georgia cases. She has also investigated notable cases such as the 1946 Mooresford Bridge lynching. McCollum is also a contributing writer for Crime Online, a crime-focused website founded by television personality and former prosecutor Nancy Grace. On December 15, 2022, she launched her podcast, Zone 7 with Cheryl McCollum, where she explores cold case investigations. In addition to her podcast work, McCollum co-authored the book Cold Case: Pathways to Justice, with fellow cold case expert Betsy Ramsey, published in 2010 by Pearson Learning Solutions. Needless to say, Mike is honored to have her insights and assistance in reviewing the evidence in the Pauline Pusser homicide case. Please join Mike in welcoming Mac McCollum to Buford Pusser, the other story.
The guest on my program today is someone who is highly qualified, someone I've wanted to get onto this program for quite some time now. It seems like we've always had a problem with scheduling because whenever we've been scheduled, she has either already been called out or is getting called out about the time that we're supposed to start. So I was fortunate enough for her to finally be available, and I'd like for you to hear her perspective because it comes from someone with a great deal of experience, both in law enforcement and crime scene investigation. So here she is, Cheryl Mac McCollum. Well, Cheryl, everyone has seen your resume by now, basically, all the experience that you've had in law enforcement and various things. I've got to ask you, how do you spend your spare time?
A lot with family. We love to travel together and hang out, so I spend a ton of time with my husband and children and sisters.
Yeah, I just had to wonder if you had spare time.
I do. I got a little bit. Hey, I got to spend some with you.
Well, we had spoken on the phone. I'd been on your podcast and Zone 7, and we talked about Buford, and then you came to Selmer on Law Enforcement Day, and you took the tour that we gave. And after you went down that same route that Buford took the morning of the ambush, can you give us your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, I can't thank you enough for inviting me on that special day. We had some amazing people with us. And I mean, I was just grateful and honored to be in their presence and company. And that included you and your lovely wife. I just had an unbelievable time. But, one of my mantras is you can't completely understand any crime scene that you don't walk it. And so being able to do that, not just walk it, but of course take the same drive, the same route, it just added so much to my understanding and what could have possibly occurred. So one thing I tried to do is take the movie out of it, take the fact that I've been a fan of his since I was a little girl, and just try to work this as two people I've never heard of.
Yeah.
So
One thing I always tell people is that, they need to forget everything they think they know about Buford Pusser because most of what they know is from the movie Walking Tall, which was basically a fictional account. So you take that out and you start looking at the evidence, and it says it all.
It makes you stop, I'm telling you. And the first thing is, we were told that somebody said, there was a sniper's nest up there, and when they left past the church, it came around that bend. I'm going to tell you, in the dark of night, it would have been good shooting, even with headlights, to lead that weapon with that vehicle to shoot in such a way that he would have hit either one of them, really,
Right.
either from the front or the sides. And, you and I both know, there are veteran law enforcement officers that have a hard time standing still, hitting a standing still target. So when you're talking about in the dark, in a tree, or in the wood line, hitting a car that's flying up some gravel, that's pretty good shooting.
Yeah, let me say this. That was Petey Plunk's story when he arrived at the first ambush scene, that there was a sniper's nest over there. He thought he had found one. And a lot of people that morning weren't buying it. Of course, then when Buford was interviewed, he started telling us about this car that came up alongside of him. No headlights. When they did turn them on, they started shooting, fired 2 shots, and said that Pauline was only wounded at the first ambush site, that she leaned into him. He couldn't get to his firearm because of her body weight up against him. And But the thing that concerned me is it's only 7/10 of a mile from that church down to the first ambush site. And of course, Buford said he was driving 45, 50 miles an hour. Now, can you see any way that a car can go from a dead stop and catch up with a car moving that quickly, negotiating some curves in total darkness because they didn't have their headlights on? Do you see any way that can be accomplished?
I had a real question about that, especially when you drive and walk that curve. I mean, you're talking about, even if you don't watch NASCAR, even if you don't understand that, you know, sometimes if you are up in the mountains and you're engaging in a turn that's pretty significant, you're going to slow way down. Otherwise, you're going to cross that line. Well, he would have not only crossed that line, keep in mind, he just got shot at. You think he's trying to maintain a lane with his wife injured? He is flying.
Well, he did say he stepped on the gas and took off, hoping to leave them behind.
That's what he should have done. That's what anybody would have done if they're getting shot at. So I question not only how were they able to catch up to him and get some more shots off when he would have been not only trying to save his wife, you know, her life, but his own. He would have been driving like a bat out of everywhere. And I don't think he would have ever slowed down to assess her or ever would have stopped. But even before that, Mike, when you took me from the home to the meeting spot, it didn't make any sense. Yeah, I didn't think we were ever going to get there. I thought, does he even know where he's going? Because we've been in this car a half hour.
Yeah, it's quite a long drive. Believe it or not, that is a shorter route to take than Highway 64 and 45. However, back then especially, the roads are still not that great. Back then especially, most of them were unimproved. And if he had gone 2 blocks, got on Highway 64, you know, gone into Selmer, turned left on 45, he would have been there a whole lot quicker. It may be about 4 miles longer that way, but it would have been a whole lot quicker because Buford drove fast anyway. And so I just know he would have gone a whole lot, got there a whole lot sooner had he taken that route. Now, let me ask you about this. Of course, his story was when they finally got to questioning that he stopped to check on Pauline, and they pulled up right beside him and stopped. The gun came out, opened fire, and he said he got hit by one of the first rounds and went to the floorboard. Now, and that Pauline was shot again, and he said that was the shot that killed her. After seeing the blood evidence on the hood, because he also said neither he nor Pauline ever got out of the car.
Right.
Just the blood evidence alone, because I'm wanting to wait for your surprise until the end of this conversation. But just the blood evidence alone, what did you see there?
Sure. There's a couple of things. On the passenger's door, it almost looks to me like there's 3 separate blood streams. So where did those blood streams come from and when? Meaning, was there an entry and exit close together where if she was leaning, it would be dripping and dripping? Where's the third one coming from? So if you look at the passenger's door, you'll see what I'm talking about. It doesn't look like her hair is swishing in it. It looks like there's a slight void pattern, but not from an arm or a shoulder. So again, how many times was she shot? I think that's going to end up being critical. The fact that there's blood on the outside of the car, on the passenger side and the back window, there's drops of blood. I don't know how that got there, but if you look at the hood of the car, there is clearly what I would call, you know, spatter that is going in a certain direction, that clearly that high velocity spatter is from something like a gunshot or like a baseball bat or a golf club hitting somebody. It's clear. I don't know how in the world that happened on the outside of the car if they never left the car.
Right.
That means a third person would have had to have been shot in the front of the car, which makes no sense.
Well, let me ask you about this. Of course, we all know that there was no autopsy done back in 1967.
Right.
Had one been, what might that have shown as concerning Pauline's wounds, for instance?
Well, we would know how many times she was shot. The angle, the trajectory would be very important. Because again, if somebody pulls up beside you and she even turns and looks, or if she doesn't, if she's trying to hide, at what angle is that, projectile hitting her? And that would tell you, is the person standing on the outside of the car or in a seated position? That would help us understand that.
Yeah, it
How
would
were
give
they
you some
able to?
perception of how high the gun was,
Yes,
from a tall person. Was it from that was
that's
on
right.
foot, or was
That's right.
it from as he claimed, someone sitting in the passenger seat of the car right next to him?
Right. And how did they shoot past him to hit her? Were they at such an angle that their car was a little above, so they're shooting kind of backwards?
Another
It would
thing,
tell us that.
another thing is his story that he fell to the floorboard. Now, we don't know Pauline's body position at that time, but, he had said that she was leaning over against him and he couldn't get to his gun. Of course, he was right-handed and would have his gun on his left side, and he would have to cross-draw, which means that he should have been easily able to get to that gun, even if she was leaning against him, but yet he didn't. But I guess what I'm wanting to get into is, do you think he could have fallen into the floorboard from being behind the steering wheel?
I got a brother-in-law that's 6'2", and there's no way he's getting in the floorboard of a car with anybody in the passenger seat. He would not be able to fit. There's no shot. But again, they could have looked at the time, was there blood in the floorboard that would have matched his injury? If you look at the seats, they're not as saturated on his side as you think they would have been. You think instinctively he would have grabbed him, you know what I mean? So there
Right.
should have been blood all on the inside of the driver's seat. It should have been blood on the steering wheel. There should have been blood all, down the front of him. And with such a significant injury, if this started to occur around 4 a.m. and the sheriff doesn't hear him call until 6, 2 hours, he's bleeding out. I don't know
Right.
how he was conscious.
Another thing I've thought about, now, Pauline was supposed to be in the front passenger seat. Now, we still had the clothing. We would have a better idea, because that's something that is usually done, is where the person performing the autopsy can compare the wounds with the clothing, for instance. JFK is a good example of that. It shows that he was shot in the back, and of course, later on, here Gerald Ford comes out and says, well, he's actually on video saying, we moved the area where he was shot from up, and that way it coordinated with the bullets or the projectile going in his back and coming out his throat. But yet, when you look at his shirt and jacket, the hole is obviously lower than that. So that would have told us a lot. For instance, something I've thought about. Did Pauline have a lot of his blood on her pant legs, if she was
That's
wearing
right.
pants, or her legs, bare legs?
That's right. And she should have.
Yeah,
Her legs should have been saturated with blood, but not from her. Because
right.
when she's shot, she goes right over. She doesn't go down. And again, if he tried to get in the floorboard, his blood should have been all over her. No question about it.
Another big mystery is why no autopsy was performed on Pauline. I did speak with Dr. Jerry Francisco, who was the individual medical examiner that would have normally autopsied the body. And he said that they did not get a request for an autopsy to be performed on her, and that two people, the local medical examiner, which would have been Harry Peeler, and the local DA, which was Will Terry Abernathy, would have to concur on the need for one. Apparently one or both of them did not think that she needed to be autopsied for whatever reason, And you have any idea what that reason might be?
I don't, unless the sheriff just insisted we're not doing it, which again would be very curious to anyone. He should have been the one champion for one, demanding one. He
Right.
should have gone after everybody he thought could have possibly been involved, whether it was Towhead White, the state line mob, somebody that he locked up that got out, somebody's who, moonshine steel he destroyed. He had some people that were absolutely angry with him. But
Well,
again,
what gets me is that even just hours after the ambush, a lot of people around McNairy County were already saying that they thought that he shot her. And why you wouldn't want an autopsy done to clear yourself, I'm not sure.
it would be a win-win. There's no question about it. But when you're looking at the sheriff that's arguably the most famous sheriff ever in the United States that has a wife murdered, and he's not losing his mind trying to lock somebody up for it, that case stayed cold. It's not like he went back to the media. It's not like he went in there with his famous stick and started putting people up against the wall saying, what do you know? What have you heard? Has anybody been talking at this bar or in this group? That didn't happen here.
Well, of course, he was seriously wounded. And yet, after the second ambush, he drove about a mile and came to Highway 45. Instead of turning right to go to, or pardon me, instead of turning left to go to Corinth, which would have a much better hospital and was much closer, he turned for a drive that was something like 17 miles to get to Selmer.
Right.
And
Right.
the only thing that I can think of there is A, either he was by that time suffering from shock, or B, that he didn't want to cross the state line and possibly get the FBI involved. Your thoughts?
That's an excellent point because they would have absolutely got in there quick as lightning and taken over the whole investigation. So he maintained control by not crossing the state line. And not only that, I think more than anybody at the time, people were going to do what he said to do, whether it was the DA or anybody else. They weren't going to go against him, especially with his wife being killed and himself being so injured. People championed for him. They rallied around him, whatever he needed, which is another reason to me it's shocking that nobody was ever arrested for this murder.
Oh, yeah. I even interviewed Lloyd Tatum, his personal attorney, and I asked Lloyd about that situation. I said, people are telling me that the FBI would have gotten involved, and I said, but yet they hadn't tied this to being more or less an interstate hit at that time. And he said, well, I was in the FBI early on in my career. And he said, no, they didn't have any jurisdiction. Now, they did offer the use of their lab services, but that was it. And you go through his Buford's FBI reports, you don't see anything in there. You see about incidents later on concerning Buford, but nothing about the ambush that is really questionable because they weren't involved. So,
and it's amazing all the people you have talked to, all the people that you've put on record that otherwise we would have lost all that information.
Well, I appreciate that. I just wish I'd got started a lot sooner because there's a lot of them that passed away after I really got involved in this. And I didn't have a chance to speak with a lot of the people I really wanted to get with. In some cases, I visited with their relatives, and, they have told me what they were told by these individuals. And keep in mind, for a lot of the people out there, should a DA decide to take this in front of his grand jury, of course, all he's looking for would be an indictment because there's no way you're going to prosecute Buford now. But it does, that would give the citizens an opportunity to have a voice in whether or not they felt like all this evidence that we now have is compelling enough to have brought charges against Buford. And, he may or may not do that. We don't know. But the thing is, for all the naysayers out there, they have to keep in mind that the standard for getting an indictment is not. It's a lot lower than like in trying to try someone for the case.
Sure.
So there's a
But
lot.
here's the other thing about the naysayers. If they are a huge supporter of Sheriff Pusser, then they should be a huge supporter of Pauline. Pauline deserves justice. We deserve answers so that we can say, hey, we now know this absolutely happened. We're going to know how many times she was shot. We're going to know at what angle.
Well,
that
right
to
at the
me
top
is
of my
really
screen, you
significant.
should see where I've got up there and have had for ages. Justice for Pauline. Because
That's right.
that's what all this is about. It's not about the movie. It's not about what it showed, other than to say people were deceived by that movie. They think that Buford was everything they saw there, and he was not. But this is about Pauline. This is about trying to
Agreed.
get some justice for her. You mentioned something earlier that I've discussed before, and I'd like to go back and hit on that. Is now this ambush allegedly occurred at 4:45 in the morning when it was nice and dark, right before dawn. And they deceived people by saying, well, it was pre-dawn. Well, pre means prior, and it doesn't mean that there was any daylight yet. But that call came in, and as far as I can tell, it was somewhere around 4 o'clock in the morning when they initially got the call. Well, he's not found till 6:20. So
That's right.
what happened with all this missing time? Where was he? What was he doing?
That's a lot of time. Because again, you're talking about 7/10 of a mile from the first ambush to the second. That ain't going to take a lot of time. They're chasing him. Pauline's injured and then killed. What is he doing for
Yeah.
2 hours, arguably?
Yeah.
And, again, the injury that he sustained, I don't know that he could have maintained consciousness for 2 hours.
Well, so much so now, we'll give it to him, because I've been told that when he arrived at the hospital, he got up off the gurney under his own power. And so there is that. Now let's get into, I've looked at the photograph of the hood of that car for ages. And I've taken this to police departments. One was a conference with criminal investigators, asking them to examine it. I know everybody's looked at it. But the one thing that you found that nobody else has noticed, including myself, you want to tell us about that?
There's a bullet hole in the hood of the car. Right before you get to the air vent, below the windshield wiper, there's a bullet hole. To me, plain as day. I mean, I've spent 44 years looking at bullet holes in cars, and I saw it. I mean, you would agree, Mike, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
No, you know exactly where to look the next time.
Yep.
But I think for so long, everybody just misinterpreted that as a spatter.
Right. I mean, I would love to see a blown up picture. I would love to have been able to see it in person somehow. But again, it even has a little half moon that illuminates the light. And the other stains that you see, the drops, the spatter, they don't look the same way. It looks very different to me.
There's just so much to talk. Let me ask you this about the bullet hole. What would that tell you as a crime scene investigator? The location of it, as
Yep. If you look at the spatter and the tails, it's all going in the direction toward the windshield. Every bit of it. There's no blood. It doesn't look like on the outside of the windshield. So that tells me the injury came low. It happened near the hood of the car, whether that was somebody got hit in the side or somebody bit down and then got shot. But that's what it tells me.
Have you seen photographs of Buford's face?
Yes.
Okay. Of course, the photos that we have are not all that good. We don't have what's in the TBI file. I don't know what's there.
Correct.
But I was sent a photo that was the property of a friend of Buford's, and his wife sent it to me saying I had more use for it than she did. But she doubted Buford's story about Pauline. Now, having said that, how would you describe how he received his wound, just from what you can tell, if you can tell anything about that?
I don't know that I can tell anything, but again, if you were to take him out of it and this was just some average couple that nobody knew, I would certainly want to see the trajectory of what happened to him. And if he had braced himself on that car somehow to shoot at this direction, could that explain what I'm seeing? And if it could explain it, then I would have to put it in this category of I've got to look at him, not this category that he was ambushed. Because again, I don't know an average man that would stop after being shot and assess anything. I think you keep going until you get to help.
Right.
And I don't know that Buford Pusser would be the kind of person, if they already came up on you once, you ain't going to let him do it again. I mean, he shot a woman. How in the world is he not going to shoot more than one man that's shooting at him? One's driving, one's shooting. We know there's at least two. I just don't see that happening.
And obviously, the tell guy out there that Kirksey Nix did it, and he did it at the behest of Towhead White, who was in prison at the time, as a revenge for killing Louise. However, they never connected, either of them, to that. Buford said he got a good look at the shooter, but yet when he was confronted with Nix in person, he couldn't identify him as being the shooter. I find that strange.
Well, Kirksey Nix, when he was in prison for the rest of his days, he talked about other things that he was involved in, shooting and blowing stuff up and the prosecutor and everything else. Why in the world would he not admit to something that would make him a legend?
Yeah.
He never did.
Well, and the reason he wouldn't deny it is because when you're in prison and you do something like that, that gives you prison cred with the rest of the inmates.
Right on.
So,
Yep.
And people need to understand that.
They do.
Just checking the time here, seeing how we're doing. But any other observations that you've got about what all you saw that day?
Well, I think the other thing that I was real curious about, again, when the call comes in, his dad's originally going to go, and the person insists, no, it's got to be Buford. I think in that scenario, you do not take your wife with you, because that is something they are luring you. They are demanding you have a conference with them. And again, at 4 a.m, I don't think I'm taking my wife.
No.
And then,
I never took my wife on a call.
No, especially not with the background he had. There were people all over that county that had a reason to hurt him and tried.
Well,
so I don't think that would be something that I would ignore. I would have to examine that more.
Of course, I've always questioned the whole thought about the state line mob. Yeah, they were there at the state line. Yeah, they did a lot of crooked things, most of it being selling bootleg whiskey and also operating the razzle game, which you still see at county fairs sometimes. It's just a simple game. There were no casinos in these beer joints, clubs, so on.
Right.
They played a deal at the cash register where you had a cup and a couple of dice and you added up numbers, and it was basically statistically impossible to ever win, but the victims of it didn't figure that out until they were out of the place. And so, the whole Walking Tall movie gave people the idea that these places had casinos and back rooms and so on. Well, this was supposed to have happened at the Plantation Club, the Lucky Spot, as they called it in the movie. Of course, after interviewing people that were there, uh, there's no indication whatsoever that there was any type of casino there. And so they built the state line reputation up, embellished it a great deal, and people don't realize that there was only the Shamrock Motel and the White Iris. They're on Buford's side of the state line.
Right, right.
And so, and it was a county of a little over 18,000 people at that time. And what you have to take into consideration also, how bad would a mob want to be in a economically depressed area with a small population? You take that 18,000, half of them are going to be kids or older people who wouldn't go to the state line. The other half are going to be, of what's left is probably going to be female, which they weren't going to go to those places as well as like the men did. And also then you have to take into consideration that part of the country was the buckle of the Bible Belt, so there would be a lot of people that would. So, how much of an organized crime could you have down there when you actually consider all those circumstances?
Well, again, if you look at the Dixie Mafia and the state line mob and all of this racketeering that's going on, when did they ever kill women? And if you kill the wife of a sheriff, you have to know the law enforcement world is going to come down on you.
Right.
And if it doesn't, that needs to be a question.
Yeah. Well, looks like we're running out of time. So,
all right. Well, again, thank you so much for including me in that unbelievable day. I mean, you and I were surrounded by some just top-notch detectives, and it was a day that I will never forget. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate the effort that you made to be there because, you had a busy schedule and had to travel some distance to join us. And I'm just really glad you did. I wish our friend Jason White had been able to join us.
I know. That might have been just too much for me to take. It would have been just too perfect.
Yeah.
So maybe when they make the announcement, we can all be there.
Well, we had Danny Couples there, and
yes.
That was great. I had another podcaster, Jed Lipinski, who does Gone South, and he has a lot of interest in the story. And so, it was an interesting day. It was law enforcement that day. And
we had the McCollum boys. They tried to figure out if we were cousins.
Yeah.
Yeah, just fantastic. Fantastic.
All right. Well, Mac, I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely. And, thank you, sir.
We'll try and have you back whenever the District Attorney General has had an opportunity to tell us something about what he's found.
I look forward to it. It's going to be epic. No question.
All right. Well, again, thanks for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And there you have it. Mac McCollum has given us her opinion on several of the things that are Pusser related in regards to the ambush and circumstances surrounding that. Of course, all we can do right now is wait. But I have to wonder in the meantime, if the autopsy report does reveal some of the things that I think it will a lot of our thoughts be vindicated as being correct? I guess only time will tell. So as soon as I hear something, you'll hear something. Who knows when that will be? We've waited for quite a long time. I'll be back Saturday with another episode of Buford Pusser, The Other Story. Until then, just remember, as I always say, truth has no agenda. And thanks for watching.